Welcome to Season 2 of the Inner and Outer Worlds podcast. My name is Zach Hanania, and to kick off Season 2, we have a special presentation from my brother Jordan and I, a 3-part series on integration. I believe integration of our dark and light sides as human beings is some of the most important work we will ever do in our lives and is part of our grand purpose of humanity. Without further ado, I will leave you guys to the episode, and I wish you guys the best in the new year, 2025, as you integrate all parts of yourself into a wholesome self that can serve your own life and the lives of others to your highest potential.
Welcome to Inner and Outer Worlds.
What's up, friends? Welcome to the Inner and Outer Worlds podcast. We back, baby. We back.
Listen, it's been a while.
It hasn't been. Let's not share
Been,
how long
it's been a while.
No.
It hasn't been that
It's
long.
been a little
It's
bit
been
of time.
it's been as much time as was needed.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everything
is
perfect.
just perfect.
Divine timing, God's will. Episode 3. Go fucking listen to it.
Episode 3?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's episode 3.
Sorry, I didn't know what you were saying.
We back with my man Jordan,
Hello.
my homie, my brother, my everything. Today we're talking about integration and why I personally believe integration is our salvation.
What is integration? Because people with science backgrounds, math backgrounds, we do our own types of integration. We don't we don't go into the soul.
That
We
was in the
go
definition. You go into integers.
we go into the integration.
Fucking nerds.
Yeah.
No, that's
So
good. We
I
need you
actually
guys.
would love for you to define that, because I actually kind of I have my own ideas of what that is, but
I would love to define it. According to the old Google dictionary. So we'll define both integration and integrity, because integration is basically like integration. Integrity is basically
yeah,
Integrate.
interesting.
T. They're similar, but they're a little different.
Well, okay, go on.
They're very much related, but there's some differences here in the definitions. So Google Dictionary definition of integrity first is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. In other words, moral uprightness.
Okay.
The second definition of integrity on Google is the state of being whole and undivided. Integrity.
Okay.
So other unofficial definitions that I've heard from people is integrity means being the same person around everyone you interact with.
Okay. Yep, I like that.
And another one could be living your life without harming yourself or others, which was related to
Okay.
that
Yeah.
moral uprightness.
Yep. Yep.
You don't want to harm anyone,
Nice.
including yourself. So it's basically like setting the standard high and being wholesome and like not veering from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what integrity means. The one thing I will mention about being the same person around everyone you interact with, I used to be a big advocate of that when I first heard that, but I'm realizing, and I've realized over the years, different people bring different sides out of you just like automatically. You know?
Yeah.
Like our mom will bring a different side out of us than like a homie or like your girlfriend, obviously.
Yeah.
But like there will be some overlap, of course, but like it's pretty much impossible to be the exact same person around everyone.
Yeah, I think we're so deep as people that it's like hard to be like that
We're
narrow-minded.
Yeah,
and
that's right. We're deep. We have many facets to
Totally,
our
yeah.
personality.
Yeah, and like you say, I think people bring out different parts of that more readily, but
yeah,
it's good to not be toxic or to be too fragmented in general.
Totally. So I think it's a good moral intention to have to be the same around everyone, but obviously it's gonna.
So would you say like being principled or like having ideals goes along with living with integrity? Is that
absolutely? Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, did you get your ideal thing from the book?
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Shout out
Brandon Sanderson.
Shout out Brandon Sanderson. I learned all of my moral lessons in life from his fantasy books. So
that's good. Hell yeah.
All of you who read fantasy and Brandon Sanderson, shout out to you. You guys know about ideals. Anyways.
Love to hear that. Yeah, however we fucking come to that conclusion of what our ideals should be is I fully support that. We should all have intentions to be better people. And values to live by.
So is that where integration comes in? Is that it's like the process to become someone with integrity? Like
basically, that's a very good way of putting it.
That makes sense to me. It's like the action of integrityifying yourself.
That's
integrating
right.
yourself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Integrityifying. In other words, integration.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get into the definition of integration. So on a society level, this is where the first definition of integration comes from. It's the intermixing of people or groups previously segregated.
Okay.
So obviously, when you integrate a group of people, it's like unifying them. And then the second definition, which is the main subject of this episode, which is the psychoanalysis definition, the process by which a well-balanced psyche becomes whole as the developing ego organizes the identity, countering the fragmenting effect of defense mechanisms. So I'm going to say that one more time.
Hell yeah.
The process by which a well-balanced psyche becomes whole as the developing ego organizes the identity, countering the fragmenting effect of defense mechanisms. So those defense mechanisms come up when we feel threatened by social situations, for example. I have an example. So like when I would lie as a kid to get out of trouble, that's a fragmenting. And that took me farther from the truth of who I am because I wanted mom and dad's love to continue. We were very blessed to have a great family, and I didn't want them to see my true self, my true dark sides that I could have as a kid.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I know they loved us unconditionally, but it felt like their love was conditional through my own perception, where when I wasn't behaving, it felt like that love was taken away, even though it wasn't. But like, I wanted to make sure that I felt loved by staying in their good books, and I would fucking lie my way out of shit.
Yeah, lying's the worst thing.
That's a fragmented
it's a fragmenting
thing. And that carried on into further things in my life, including in my own relationship, which was fucking immature as fuck.
Yeah, but again, it's a defense mechanism. It's learned. It's like you
totally
picked it up somewhere.
Totally.
So
yeah.
Okay.
So that's just one example, but basically we have defense mechanisms that come up that fragment us from our true selves and take us away from the well-balanced, wholesome person that we are. Lying is one example. Do you have anything to say on those definitions before we carry on?
I'm curious if fragmenting is necessarily a result of defense mechanisms. I would assume it's not fully that, but like on first glance, it seems like defense mechanisms at least tie in quite directly to like the fragmenting of self. But I'm just not sure if like that's the only way your psyche gets fragmented.
I'm sure it's not the only way.
I guess defense mechanisms can be thought of quite broadly too, so I'd have to think about that. But
I feel like defense mechanisms could even be like coping mechanisms,
Yeah, for sure.
which can be all substances or whatever behavior that you acquire to make you feel better
I think so.
from life's
Yeah, trying to cope with things that you
issues.
don't want to face head
That's
on.
right.
And yeah.
Well, like we always want to feel better, right? But like we stick a band-aid on when we use coping mechanisms rather than healing the true root of things.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about.
Well, you probably also like put on a bit of a mask or like an act to deal with certain life circumstances that aren't really your true self. It's like
Totally.
I guess that's a defense / coping mechanism to whatever you're facing, and
True.
that can like build its own little demon within you.
Right.
Like, over
Well,
time,
yeah,
builds these
like-
unconscious or subconscious parts of you that respond then again in the future to that thing just automatically.
Totally. Like we do it either to feel better or to fit in, typically. That's
Yeah.
why we would fragment ourselves away from our true self. So like if we want to fit in with a group in school when we're young and they're all playing sports, but I've been playing with toys up until that point. It's like I'm going to start changing myself to fit in with that group, or I just don't give a fuck, but that wasn't me as a kid.
Yeah.
I wanted to fit in with
Okay. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
quote unquote cool kids or whoever I deemed as cool at age 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those definitions sound good to me. Yeah, no more on that from me.
Okay, so we'll go through what is now being referred to as the conscious evolution as the first point on our agenda, which is past the biological evolution that got us to this point of conscious self-referential awareness. We'll break that down a little bit, and then we'll get into how each of our lives is a hero's journey and what that whole process entails. And then we'll get into why integration is important, ways of becoming self-aware, and becoming aware of our shadow self. We'll also get into why we suppress and repress certain aspects of ourselves, such as our emotions, desires, and thoughts. We will get into dark and light polarity in the universe and how dark and light in our personal lives relates to our own personal integration. We'll also talk about leaving behind the good and evil paradigm, religions and philosophies that encourage integration, Carl Jung's 3-part consciousness model that is very well broken down in the book Decoding Jung's Metaphysics that we both recently finished. I recently finished. Jordan finished a year ago when we said we were going to read the book. And then we'll talk about integrating Jung's 3-part consciousness model into a complete self. We will also get into the process of healing. And lastly, how no experience is bad and it's all shaping us into who we are.
Hell yeah. That sounds fucking fun and awesome. I'm excited. Just for anyone who like isn't aware of why any of this is important, why don't you like give a brief summary of what the point of any of this is?
Right.
Like, why should someone listen to the rest of this episode?
Absolutely. So I cover some of this in the rest of the episode, but just off the top of my head here, because we become so fragmented and unconscious of our repressed and suppressed aspects of ourselves, those repressed things such as emotions can build and build and build to the point that we can no longer carry that weight of that repressed emotion or suppressed emotion. Suppressed meaning we consciously stuffed it down, repressed meaning we unconsciously stuffed it down. And when we reach that point of our breaking point, it usually manifests as an outburst of anger, for example, or an outburst of sadness, or like people who don't really express that much emotion but keep carrying the weight of everything they never express in a healthy way and like allow it to release, they typically develop ailments such as depression or anxiety, or it can even manifest as physical ailments. So all fucking health issues are the result, in my opinion, of unhealthy expression of emotion. All the stress hormones and shit are the result of life happening, potential traumas happening, and then us not processing it well because we just are unaware of how to properly process that and how to express our emotion. We're not supported well in our society to do that. We're not taught it in school. So it becomes a very tough battle. And again, when that stuff builds up, it can lead to all kinds of sickness and stuff. So for our overall well-being, the process of calling in all aspects of ourselves, the dark, the light, everything, and fully joining those things and creating an integrated self, and also the life events that happen to us, bringing that in and like not turning away from them and owning that this happened and this is part of me and this is building me into the person that I now am, not seeing it as fuck, I wish I never went through that and that experience really screwed me up. Like rather than victimizing ourselves, like empowering ourselves with, okay, that thing was hard as fuck. A person shouldn't have to go through that. That was so emotionally draining, but how is that making me stronger? How is that building me? What lessons did I learn from that now made me into a better person today?
Yeah, that's a freaking powerful idea, is like these reflections on the past. Like, this shit happened to me. It was unfair. If I just stuff it down and ignore it, my unconscious brain is going to process it. So it's like either I consciously process this, or I just let it program me deep within and then face the ramifications later.
Totally.
And fuck, we face that problem all the time. Like, I think we all just stuff things down on a daily basis. Like,
that's right.
Even minor things can happen and you're just like, fuck it, like I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not truly fazed by it, which is great, but then also if your unconscious is dealing with that could also be bad too. So
totally, that's such a good way of putting it. It's about facing everything that happens to us in life. It's about facing all parts of us, whether they seem evil or good or whatever, and owning that is an aspect of us that I don't have to necessarily act out, but I need to bring it into the wholeness of who I am. I need to satisfy all these desires that I have in some way that are in line with my values still, so I can be a whole self rather than neglecting parts of me that are just going to get louder and louder the more I neglect them within.
Yeah, that's good.
You and I were talking about, and neither of us have read this book, but there's a book called Your Symphony of Selves, and I'm sure we've all felt within or in our minds that it can feel like we're multiple people with, like, they call it multiple personality disorder when it's like too much of that, but I think on a small scale, on a less intense degree, we all experience multiple personalities, and it's because we have so many aspects of who we are as human beings. We're like, I'll get into this more with the show notes, but we're currently going through this conscious evolution, which is essentially the transition from our instinctual selves to our more spiritual selves. And we can't just like completely overnight snap a finger and be our spiritual selves. Like, that's not the fucking thing. That's not why we're here on Earth. Like, we don't incarnate here in the physical reality to just neglect these animalistic impulses that are part of being descendants from primates. We're not here to fucking neglect that shit. We're here to like experience the fullness of what it is to be human. We're bringing in that instinctual side and the spiritual side together into this cool integrated whole self that is a very unique experience, and we're learning from every single era of our evolution. So it's
Fuck yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
what a time to be alive.
You just hyped me the fuck up, man.
Good. It's fucking cool, man. This
It
reality
is-
is
it
sick as
is.
fuck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
And
sick, dude.
fuck, why not prepare yourself to face it as best you can?
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't choose to be born, and we didn't choose all these fucking problems that happened to us, but might as well face it with
It's true.
integrity. Right?
I agree.
So,
I believe on a soul level, some part of our consciousness did choose to be here at this time, but on a human level, it's like, I don't fucking choose this. Fuck this shit.
yeah,
Shit's
I
hard,
like
man.
that. I like that. Yeah,
I do.
yeah. So might as well get yourself prepared for that lifelong battle and be as freaking awesome as you can.
It doesn't have to be a battle with a perspective shift.
Right,
It's just like, instead of things happening to you, it can all seem like it's happening for you in
How about
some way.
nah, maybe not battle,
It's
but like
building you.
lifelong party. It's like
Fun party.
it's
Yeah,
like, I'm,
baby.
I'm enjoying this. Hell yeah. Yeah, why don't you go on with the next topic? I think that satisfied my curiosity for like why we're here.
Good, man. Okay, the conscious evolution of humans. Human beings are complex. We have many aspects of our personal inner worlds. Thoughts, desires, and emotions inspire our actions, which then create our habits, which then create our lives. These thoughts, desires, emotions, and habits are what we'll be referring to as aspects of self throughout this integration podcast series. So, starting with thoughts and desires, they are the result of a combination of our DNA and our environment. Our environment is composed of our culture, our society, our home, school, or work environment, and in general, the input of information that we allow into our mental, emotional, and physical systems. You with me?
I'm following, buddy.
Good, man.
That's sick. Okay.
All right, so yeah, thoughts and desires result of DNA and environment. So the information, this input of information coming into our systems can come in the form of media, food and drinks, substances, sound, light, sense, and other particles and waves.
Mhm.
As channels of information, we put our attention on a particular subject with our conscious awareness, and thoughts begin being, it feels like, received about that particular subject from universal consciousness or divine intelligence or wherever the fuck thoughts come from, we start receiving.
Mm.
But we are essentially the ones holding the TV remote, where we pick the channel and then we sit back and relax. So we pick the subject we want to think about, and then all of a sudden this like filing cabinet of thoughts come out of nowhere. It feels like we're of our brain or whatever. And it's just everything that either we have already retained or something new, some new idea that we're receiving from somewhere in the ether to inspire us to something innovative. That's how, that's what's going on with thoughts and desires. Our emotions are the result of our thoughts and the fulfillment or unfulfillment of desires. So when we have a desire fulfilled, we feel good, we feel happy. When we have a desire not fulfilled, we tend to feel frustrated or angry or sad. So again, our emotions are the result of our thoughts and the fulfillment or unfulfillment of our desires. And our habits are the result of repeated actions that we take towards our desires, typically to achieve a particular emotion or need. So that's kind of how all these aspects of selves are related. Thoughts, desires, emotions, habits, they're all related to one another. As we live our lives, all information in our environment is a factor that influences the thoughts we think, the desires we have, the emotions we feel, and the habits we form. Naturally, we want to do things that make us feel good. Evolution has conditioned us to do so. And we typically do this so we can survive. The ability to seek and find food and water and find a partner to procreate with has kept our species alive this far. Finding food and water and a partner feels good. Our desires are programmed to be around those things. to continue our species.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm sure we've all noticed, doing things that feel good in excess end up making us not feel good in the long run. For example, overeating. And doing things that feel good to ourselves but are at the cost of making others feel bad also doesn't end up making us feel good in the long run, because we innately want to form deep, meaningful, trusting, and mutually beneficial relationships. So that's where integrity gets introduced to our evolution. Because up until that point of self-referential consciousness, or like thinking beyond just the present moment, it's like, I'm not just gonna kill someone to get that water.
Mm-hmm.
This person is beneficial to me on a relational level, and I want to have them around as a friend. I'm not just gonna kill this fuck to get the last bit of water. We're gonna share this water and then find more water together, for example.
Yeah.
So that's where this conscious evolution comes in to our biological evolution.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool to think of it relationally. I guess a lot of our psyche is kind of, I mean, take language, for example. Like, you don't develop language in isolation. Like, language is necessarily built from relations among people.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I'd say you could probably trace almost everything that we experience down to some relational aspect between people, and
So
not just
true,
like
dude.
happening in isolation.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess the way we kind of interact and view the world is inherently constructed from these relational aspects. So yeah,
Mhm.
like I didn't think of integrity as like requiring other people, but it seems to, because you're acting with integrity, with good morals, to like to engage with the world properly, because otherwise,
Why have integrity?
yeah, exactly, you could just
I'm just gonna eat all the food
yeah
and whatever.
yeah there's consequences if you behave like a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't want to
Deal
hang
with
out
that.
with you or share their food and
Totally.
make business with you. Anything.
It's an empty
So,
existence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sick.
Yeah. No, that's interesting too. I'm happy to have you like doing this, because you'll point out things that were like just totally not in my awareness about this subject. So that's sick.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that for you. I think you've so far eloquently outlined this this like very like this is a very massive field of ideas, is like who we are as people and like where these, like, the core of our existence comes from, like these thoughts and emotions and all that. And it's such a freaking dynamic interplay. Like,
Yeah.
each one of those things you outlined, like thoughts, emotions, desires, habits,
Actions.
actions, yeah, like all of those are so heavily like cyclical, like feeding back on each other,
Yes.
that it's like hard to place like the cause for anything. It's like, did I act because I thought of something, or did I think of something because of the way I'm acting and my
Right.
emotions, or
Fucking
like my
right.
desires? Like, what came first?
I don't
It's
know,
like
dude.
chickens
It
and
comes
eggs.
back to the thalamocortical loops that are going on that we were
Sure,
talking
yeah,
about
but
in
then
that
it's like,
episode.
where does the loop begin? It's like you can't really place like a core
Catalyst.
catalyst. The free will. Like, this goes back to free will as well. It's like,
This is
Who's
God's will or my own will?
yeah,
fucking
exactly. It's
doing
like,
this?
who's making these decisions?
Yeah.
Who's choosing my thoughts? Who's choosing my actions? Like, where do these loops connect? And
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's
man.
too trippy to think about, but it's
Yeah.
there's obviously correlations between all of that.
I kind of want to, because we discussed it in a past episode where everything really is God's will, but with the illusion that it's our own will.
Right. Whatever you want to call God.
Yeah, God,
Yeah.
the universe, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a belief in any particular thing, but some higher consciousness than what we are currently perceiving as human beings is responsible for the creation of this motherfucker.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways. So yeah, naturally we default to doing the things that make us feel good. Finding water, finding a partner, finding food has kept our species alive thus far. But yes, excess, such as overeating, makes us not feel good in the long run. And harming others in order to make ourselves feel good in the short term does not feel good in the long term because we lose those relationships. So doing what makes us feel good is the bare minimum. That's what our biological evolution has taken us to. That's the point that it took us to. And now for a conscious evolution to now take over, it's forcing us to have this level of integrity so that on a relational level, we can also be fulfilled. So doing what feels good and helping others feel good is what evolution is now nudging us to do as we become more conscious and considerate of one another as a species, and what makes us feel good in the long term, not just the short term. And similar to what I said, the physical evolution we have undergone to achieve this level of consciousness is no longer the focal point. What has become the new focus is the evolution our consciousness is now going through, rising from our instinctual selfish nature to our spiritual considerate nature. This is the conscious evolution, a paradigm shift in relating. So, as I mentioned earlier, integration is not about dropping our selfish instinctual nature for a better, quote-unquote, selfless spiritual nature. It's about bringing in both our instinctual self and our spiritual self and bringing them into a healthy balance without denying either. So, getting into habits. As we become more considerate of what is actually good for us and others in the long run, what ends up happening in our lives is we develop the desire to start doing things that benefit ourselves and others and stop doing things that are harming ourselves or others. What's required is a cessation of old habits or actions that were not beneficial for all and replacing them with new habits that are. The desire for consciousness to become integrous is born. In other words, the desire to become honest with strong moral principles to live by that honor both ourselves and others. This requires us to attain integrity by becoming whole and complete within ourselves first and foremost, so that we stop feeling the need to impulsively and inconsiderately pleasure seek at the cost of our long-term health when we get into levels of excess consumption and the well-being of the people around us who we care about. This becomes possible through becoming conscious of 4 major areas to begin feeling whole again. So first area we need to become conscious of to feel whole is the unhealed parts of ourselves where we are feeling lack, which creates an impulsive feedback loop of consumption within our being as we attempt to feel whole. That's where all addiction stems from. It's that feeling of lack from within.
Yeah.
You want to fill that void. The second thing we need to become conscious of to feel whole is the root of why we became unwhole by looking into our history and identifying the hurt we experienced and the coping mechanisms we began leaning on in an attempt to feel better. Also known as becoming aware of our unprocessed traumas. The third thing we need to become conscious of is the light and the dark qualities we possess within ourselves and finding healthy, integrous ways of satisfying both our dark and light sides, also known as our instinctual and spiritual sides. And the last thing we need to become conscious of to feel whole again is the toxic habits we notice we have developed and either replacing them with healthy ones or at least bringing them out of excess consumption and into balance or moderation. One last thing I'll mention here is sometimes what society deems as a bad habit is actually necessary to satisfy and integrate a darker side of us, but it must be brought out of excess and into moderation to serve us and others well. Anything done in excess, and many religions and philosophies say this: moderation is the key to happiness. And I'm sure through trial and error, you've all found that too.
Yep.
Anything on any of that from you?
Man, I have a lot of tangents maybe we could go down, but like I don't want to
Absolutely.
spend too much time like getting off the rails. I mean, I watched a good video. I think most people, well, not most, but like many people will know of this YouTuber Veritasium, who puts out a lot of educational videos about really cool topics that can be quite like the topics themselves are typically quite opaque or hard to understand, but communicates them with a lot of good analogies and visuals and all this stuff. So he's pretty massive
Cool.
educator now. But one of his like bigger recent videos is on game theory, which sounds like, I don't know, like games sound for like kids or something, but game theory is like one of the more practical branches of mathematics, and like it's big in economics, but it's also big in biology. So like games, in other words, are games of strategy. And like the most popular one, which is what this video is about, is the prisoner's dilemma. And many game shows game shows on TV use this format where it's like, for instance, I'll just outline this just to kind of give a sense for like a type of game. But you have two competitors or cooperators. They can like choose to cooperate or to like kind of steal from one another. So like, let's say it's you and I, and we're given an option to so we're trying to gain money here and we can win, but they say we can either split the pot, or we can share, or sorry, we can steal or share. So if we both share, let's just use like a random number here. If we both try to share the pot, we each get $3. So if I like we vote anonymously, so the arbiter will be like, okay, you write down on your paper, Zach will write down on his paper, if he wants to steal or if he wants to share. So if we both write down share, then we both get $3, which is great. But one of us or both of us can also choose to steal. So if Zach chooses to steal and I choose to share, then Zach gets $5 and I get $0. So Zach's got a lot of money and I got zero. Or vice versa, I can choose to steal and you choose to share and I will get all the money. But if we both choose to steal, then we both just get $1. So it turns out that the best strategy, if we just play this game once, is to always steal.
Really?
So for instance, if say my card says share and you steal, you get $5. But if my card says steal and then you steal, you'll get $1.
Yeah.
If you chose to share when I share, you get $3. And if you chose to share when I steal, you get $0. So it averages out that you'll basically make more money no matter what if you steal.
Is this assuming that there's multiple rounds?
No, the best strategy is to steal if there's just one round.
Oh.
So you'll make more money if you...
What if I end up with the $1?
Well, if you end up with the $1...
That's not more.
Yeah, but you would have ended up with $0 if... Okay, let me say it a different way. So if I choose to share and you choose to share, you get $3. If I choose to share and you choose to steal, you get $5.
Yeah.
So your decision to steal got you more money for that answer of mine. Now look at my other answer, where if I chose to steal and you chose to share, you'd get $0.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
I thought. Oh, okay. $0 and then 5 to the other person.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if I choose to steal and you choose to share, you get $0.
Yeah.
If I choose to steal and you choose to steal, you get $1.
Yeah.
So you'll always like no matter what I pick, you'll do better if you choose steal.
Mm.
So that's this like instinctual like negative way of engaging with the world is like
Yeah,
I need to
weird.
steal something from him because if he steals from me, he's just going to win.
Right.
So this is like the instinctual like dumb evolution.
Dude, and this is what so many people think about our government.
Right. So this video is really interesting because they like relate all these things back to the real world.
I
But
like that.
so yeah, the optimal strategy in a one game round is to always steal and to be like the dick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you play multiple rounds, it turns out that always steal strategy is very, very bad. There's multiple strategies you can employ because if you're going many rounds, you can like start to base your behavior on what the other person's doing, and you can like try to read what they're doing and like try to make more money for yourself. But it turns out that yeah, stealing's not the best one. You actually want to try to like cooperate a little bit with the other person. So there's a bunch of strategies you can employ, but overall, yeah, your evolution is not to be instinctual anymore. It's to be like more in the spiritual realm that you're talking, which is like
that's fucking
cooperating.
Very interesting.
And you could make analogous like claims of integrity of how I'm playing this game. And this is just a very simple game, but like game theory goes over all sorts of games that are played. And there's like what's called evolutionary game theory, which is like games that organisms play, which is more or less like killing. It's like organisms kill each other or they cooperate with other organisms to try to get resources. And there's all sorts of like what's called payoff functions, which is how well you're doing in the game of evolution. And there's freaking deep science and math and all sorts of things behind that. But you just kind of got me thinking like integrity is a type of strategy in a evolutionary game.
Totally, it is a strategy.
Yeah.
It seems like so high moral and shit, but really, on some level, like we're being integrous because it makes us feel good. Like, yes, it's nice to also make someone else feel good, but ultimately, it's making us feel good in the long run.
Yeah, and
It's
like
both. It's not like we're just selfish pricks that are like, I'm gonna just be nice to him so I can feel good about it. It's like, no, we find genuine like we genuinely, our own emotions aside, we want to see other people happy,
yeah,
but like we can't deny that it also makes us feel happy too.
well, you can also come at this from another angle of like survivability or adaptation, where like it's beneficial for myself and for you if we both act out of integrity and trust.
Yeah.
We'll tend to survive longer. We'll tend to build stronger communities and outcompete the world that's playing like savages.
Right.
That's just one way to look at it. I would say like these evolutionary biologists view too much of the world as just like these games or like these survival payoffs. But
Because there's more factors than that.
yeah, I think it's just it's like kind of the fad in like evolution to like think of everything as increasing your survival, and that's the only reason we do something is because it gives us like slimmer survival chances.
Right.
I think that's the case for a lot of things, but I don't think that's like the only lens to see the world.
True.
But yeah, like integrity to me, at least when it's developed like to help us survive, would be a good strategy. But now it's maybe just like it makes you feel good or makes other people feel good, and that's maybe not increasing survival, but it's increasing like pleasantness in the world.
Right. Fulfillment, maybe.
Fulfillment, yeah. More spiritual aspects, because like I think eventually like it's so easy to survive nowadays
Yeah,
like
that's
in the
the
world.
thing.
is that we're playing different games. We're not playing like this like instinctual survival game anymore.
Totally. Like
It's
that's actually I'm so glad you brought that up because we're no longer in a phase of evolution where we need to just like survive. We are now able, because we have all our needs met in a lot of countries, most countries, we're able to now start taking steps towards thriving.
I hope so.
As a collective society.
I hope so.
We are.
Yeah, we are able to, but like people tend
That's-
to keep playing war games and
Yeah,
friggin'
it's
base.
still insane
yeah.
that we have as much technology advanced as it is with still like these monkeys that are our own species killing each other.
Yeah,
It's fucked.
yeah.
But that is some fascinating shit, and like especially how organisms are doing the same thing where they can partner with other organisms and
Mm-hmm.
find resources together or go to war with them. It's like crazy how these different levels of existence are so reflective of one another.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
Yeah, I would recommend that video. Just look up Game Theory Veritasium on YouTube. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's sick. Thank you for that. That was not where I thought you would go with that, but that's sick.
Yeah, that's my brain's just thinking of different
Oh,
things,
it's
but it's
sweet.
related. Yeah.
It is very related. Okay, moving on to the hero's journey. So, since the phase of evolution we are now in is the conscious evolution, many of our battles will be fought within our own self. So I thought it would be valuable to review the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a narrative framework often used in literature, mythology, and storytelling to describe the typical adventure of the archetype known as the hero. Joseph Campbell, a scholar of comparative mythology, popularized this concept in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. So I don't think this is just an archetype. I think all people possess this. We're all on our own hero's journey in some form or another. And most of us face a key hurdle to conquer in life, whether it's an addiction, an illness, a relationship issue, or a combination. Everyone has problems to overcome. So the hero's journey typically follows these stages. Stage 1, departure. So the step 1 of departure is the ordinary world. The hero is going about living their normal everyday life. Step 2 is the call to adventure. Something disrupts the hero's ordinary world, presenting a challenge or a quest. Step 3 of departure is refusal of the call. Initially, the hero may hesitate or refuse the adventure, feeling unprepared or afraid. Step 4, meeting with a mentor. A mentor, in the form of a person or even just new information, appears to guide and prepare the hero for the journey ahead. And step 5 of the departure, crossing the threshold. The hero commits to the adventure and leaves the ordinary world or their old self behind. Stage 2 is initiation. Step 1 of initiation is tests allies and enemies. The hero faces challenges, makes allies, and confronts their enemies. Step 2, approach to the deepest cave. The hero approaches the central ordeal or crisis. Step 3 of initiation is the ordeal. The hero faces a significant challenge, often encountering their greatest fear. And the final step of initiation is the reward. After overcoming the ordeal, the hero receives a reward or achieves the goal of the quest. And the final stage, stage 3, the return. Step 1 of the return, the road back. The hero begins the journey back into the ordinary world with new knowledge or power. They are a new version of themselves. Step 2, resurrection. the hero faces a final test or confrontation, often leading to transformation or rebirth. And stage 3 of the return, or step 3 of stage 3, is return with the elixir. The hero returns home, bringing back something valuable that benefits the ordinary world. Do you have anything to say?
It's like Hercules.
It's like Hercules. Like every fucking action movie
fictional
and every
story.
person's life ever.
Yeah.
These hardships are building us every fucking time into someone that we could not have been without them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's essentially the journey we're all on.
But yeah, I mean, it's like it's represented in fiction so often because of how powerful that is as a true reflection of our real life. Like these mythologies or fictions that persist over time tend to be the ones that resonate deepest with our real selves and conditions.
So true, man, for a reason.
Yeah. So these fictions tend to be realer than we give them credit for.
Yeah, like the emotional process is the same, just the theatrics of it in a story or a screen or a fantasy book are far more dramatic. But
I find that's one huge aspect of fantasy books that I find appealing, is that it helps me process and go through these journeys on like a micro level by like empathizing with some character and then basically going through that whole trial of what you just described through someone else's lens, and then you see them come through and they change as a result, and I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's so
yeah,
amazing.
this is the whole power of that, is to make you feel these things.
I remember when you were telling me and Jacob about your fantasy books that night on LSD, and like that was the first time I ever realized that these fantasy books can be an initiation into certain understandings that are directly applicable to your real life.
Right.
Because before that, I was like, fantasy, why read that? Like when there's nonfiction that can actually benefit my life.
Yeah.
But totally fantasy benefits your life too.
Yeah, and like fiction in general, it like helps you empathize temporarily with some other condition in life, and then you kind of go through a hero's journey of your own with the book or character, and then at the end you like come back and like integrate those knowledge with the elixir of come back to the ordinary life, and it does somewhat change you, benefit you a little bit.
Totally. That's
like you can look at fiction as this naive children's type game, but like clearly fiction's not, because it's so pervasive in our society that we're clearly doing it for a reason.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's kind of why the story structure works so well of what I just described in the hero's journey, because that essentially is so similar to what we learned in school of how you should write a story with like a problem, or like normal life, a problem comes around, efforts are made to overcome the problem, and then a climax is like, are they going to overcome it or not? And typically there's a happy ending, and then you carry on with the elevated sense of self and life afterwards. So like that's the fucking story of everyone's life. That's why, like you said, it resonates so deeply with us, because that is what we're all living. All right, so now getting into why is integration important? And I know I touched on this near the beginning of this episode, but I'm going to mention what I have written down in the notes. So the short answer of why integration is important is so all parts of us can feel satisfied and fulfilled in healthy ways that don't harm ourselves or others. That's the short answer. The long answer is, so we stop hurting ourselves and others because of the unconscious, instinctual tendencies we develop to protect ourselves from uncomfortable emotions. Integration is also important so people can live an expansive, happy, purposeful, and fulfilled life feeling whole and connected to themselves and all of life, as opposed to feeling sick, tired, contracted, purposeless, unfulfilled, and disconnected from themselves and others and all of life. Constantly attempting to escape reality through impulsive, instinctual, excessive consumption of food, drugs, alcohol, media, to avoid feeling the lingering discomfort. Integration is important also because the longer we keep our repressed aspects in the shadows, the bigger they grow, eventually resulting in a buildup of emotion that leads us to be more destructive towards ourselves and others because we just can't contain it anymore. All right, so shining the light of consciousness on our shadows, also known as bringing all aspects of self out of unawareness and into our conscious awareness, is the key to healing. Integrating all aspects of ourself into a cohesive whole is necessary for both inner peace and world peace. The main reason we have wars, violence, and a lack of peace on earth is because we have repressed emotions that build internally to the point where we can no longer contain them and they end up being expressed in a big and destructive way. When severe wrongdoings that inflict trauma are done to us or to our family over generations, that trauma, in other words, stored shock, stored anger, stored sadness, and grief, is often not released or transmuted in a healthy way, so people continue the same destructive cycles as their ancestors. It's very difficult to release trauma and forgive, and you can't totally blame people for not. But awareness is the remedy. Conscious awareness needs to be brought to these darker, more wounded aspects of ourselves that we've repressed and suppressed in order to temporarily feel better, so we can heal them for good, feel permanently better internally, and stop harming others externally. Elevated awareness of what trauma is, what shadow is, how to integrate them into our life and sense of self, and how the universe works is the only way to own what's happened, truly heal, and carry on empowered. So, in a nutshell, those things, trauma, shadow, integration, and how the universe works, I'll just sum those up quick for us. The elevated awareness we must have to heal is, number one, trauma is shock to the nervous system that gets stored, affecting our entire being. Number two, shadow is our darker, wounded, unconscious, and repressed aspects of self. Number three, integration is the process of unifying our conscious self and our unconscious shadow self with all that has happened to us. And the last thing we need to know to heal is how the universe works, which is it's all one big cycle of consciousness incarnating to evolve itself from its selfish instinctual nature to its enlightened spiritual nature. With this knowing, we can come to accept that things don't happen to us, they happen for us, because everything, both good and bad, contributes to our evolution from instinct to spirit. Only with an understanding and application of all this can we truly heal personal and generational trauma and feel empowered.
Fuck yeah, boy. That's it. So you're gonna get into all that, how we integrate, how we confront the shadow, how do we deal with our traumas, identify our traumas, all that stuff coming up next. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sick.
But the main thing I want to drive home right now is our internal or our external reality, and how society is a reflection of our internal states. So if we have unhealed shit within us, that's eventually going to manifest into the actions we take, which is the explanation why there's still wars in such a technically advanced era. It's because we haven't healed that shit within us emotionally. And like our evolution is demanding that we address that shit now and like spinning our wheels on the fucking rat race is not the way to do that. We have no time for this shit. And whether people want to say it's by design, they make sure that we're like always in the rat race or whatever. I don't care what the cause is. Like, we need to stop and like give ourselves the time of day to heal shit within us, take time off work or work less or be there less for other people in our spare time to address these unhealed parts of ourselves and actually have maybe a few months ideally, but potentially a few years where we're really looking at all aspects of ourselves and healing the fucking roots of our unhealed trauma so that we don't act out externally. And people always think like, what can I actually do to change the world? It's change your fucking self, because you won't have those emotional outbursts on other people. And if everyone fucking did that, we would have world peace eventually.
Hell yeah. I fucking fully agree with that. And another thing is like, it goes the converse way too, is like the external world is changing who we are inside. And if you can, I guess the ultimate, like you say, the ultimate healing, the thing that you can do is like to fix yourself, to heal yourself. And then that will one cause you to put better things out into the world, and two, it will allow you to not be so perturbed by what the world's putting into you.
Yes,
like you're not gonna shift from calm to psycho if something happens in the world, because you've already kind of like dealt with your stuff, and you know how you process confrontation, or you know how you process XYZ in the world. So I think that's the best intervention we can do, is to integrate ourselves and make ourselves rock solid, so that we can put out good things and receive bad things well.
Yeah, totally, man. That's such a great point. Because you look at like, and this is more prevalent in like primate civilizations, but there's also more advanced primates that are more social and like they're very much like human seeming and smart, but a lot of them deal with conflict like immediately, like I'm gonna kill you now because you fucking took my food, or like they will like kill their own kind to get what they want, or they will fight them for what seems like no good reason. That's the shit we want to evolve away from. And that's why like things like meditation, where it like you have a practice of pausing and like being aware and not reacting, anything that involves that, but meditation is the one that comes to mind, where you have that pause in between your impulsive reaction, is like so beneficial, because you're not acting from this charged state of heightened emotion. You have a few moments to calm down, and that can be the difference between ending up in jail and not.
Yeah.
And like that's where like people like Michael Singer, who is like a spiritual author, he went into jails and taught meditation for that reason.
Sick. Yeah, that's good stuff.
It's just that space that we can create within to allow the emotions to settle, even if it's just for a few moments, and then we're not responding instinctually and impulsively, and we're more in line with our consciousness or our spirit or whatever you want to call it, but we're just more in line with a more civilized way, a more integrous way of relating.
Hell yeah. I think that's a good first pass on this, and then we'll get right into the next stuff, and we'll put that out for people to listen to next, because we'll get right into the details, like basically how you go through actually becoming someone with integrity, going through this whole process that Zach's describing.
Thank you guys for joining us on this episode. It is episode 1 out of 3 in our integration series. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope that you give your own shadows some love and some awareness so you can integrate them into yourself and create a wholesome version of you.